wait a minute, what? They did what?
And why did they do that?
And why?
And where were the hints that they were doing that?
Nowhere. Welcome to the Book Angle, where we talk about books from different angles and sometimes go in circles. I'm Anna, and this is Sabrina.
And we're together!
We're together again. Reunited.
Wow, reunited at last. Go us.
Yay. So, today, we're here to talk about some big, chunky, thick books.
They're huge. Like,
some juicy,
pulpy books.
Pulpy books. I hate that word so much after reading. You've not read these books, you don't know what I'm talking about. But this book uses the word pulp or pulpy
So many times.
It's a war crime.
There's also a lot of shredded me like ribbons, but it's not the same shredded like ribbons like ACOTAR, where it's like a...
Yeah.
It's shred like ribbons.
There's a lot of dead bodies that get mutilated in terrible ways and lovely descriptions. Anyway.
Yes. So we're going to talk to you about that today. But this is a little bit different. So we're going to go over, in full transparency, I have read the entire first book. Anna has read both. And so I think we're going to start by giving our normal like rubric review of the first one and then discuss, should you read this series?
Right. And the series is Crescent City.
Oh, yes! We're going to talk about Crescent City by Sarah J Maas.
Which I always thought that the name of this book was Crescent City.
And it's not.
It's not. The name of the book is House of Earth and Blood.
Yes.
But because Crescent City is
in
much bigger letters.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's what it's called. But actually, House of Earth and Blood is like in tiny font title. Right there. Yep.
They did better on this one.
Yeah.
That is not Crescent City.
That one is a lot clearer. But
it's a lot clearer.
Anyway, that's the books we're talking about.
Yeah, and we'll have a clear stopping point where we will. So the first part is spoiler free, and we'll have a stopping point where we discuss whether or not you should read it and why. So there will be spoilers in that section.
Yeah, I
trust you're not the math wizard, you're the video editing wizard.
Yeah,
to fix that for us.
I'll give a clear stop here. Go no further. Sigh. Cool. All right. Okay. So we're just gonna discuss our rubric review for the first book because that's the only one you read.
Yeah. There's a reason.
So, characterization. How did you feel about characters?
Honestly, until certain points, I actually would have given it a 5. In comparison, I have only ever read the ACOTAR series. I haven't read Sarah J Maas's Throne of Glass. I actually liked these characters more than her other ones, especially Bryce. I just felt like Farrah's kind of pathetic sometimes, but Bryce was not, and I believed her when she was doing stuff behind the scenes. I loved the friendship aspect because I'm like, oh, found family, precious. But then there were some characters, which we'll talk about probably in the spoiler section, who just did some things, and I was like, no, this doesn't match. This doesn't match what I was told, so I would have to give it a 4. But I did like the characters.
Yeah, I know that people don't like when we agree because it's not that interesting, but I do agree that
they're good.
I liked the characters. I understood their motivations up until a specific moment. And that was the moment where I was like, wait a minute, what? They did what?
And why did they do that?
And why?
And where were the hints that they were doing that?
Nowhere. So I do think that falls more for plot. For like, even though it was a character decision, it was also a plot issue as well.
And a believability issue.
It was just all an issue.
It was all an issue. So top tier.
I don't really have anything more to say except for it is very much... She characterizes her, like, it's very typical of Sarah J Maas. Like, her characters have a bit of a format that they fall into, especially her male characters. They fall into a certain big buff dude, a little bit of a broody guy, tortured past, wings. Yep.
Are there wings in Throne of Glass?
I don't think that she had gotten into her wing fetish yet. So it's been a couple years since I read it, but I don't think, I know that the main characters don't have wings. Okay. So, are they fae? Absolutely yes.
Yes. Well, yeah, you're right. I mean, they were kind of similar. You had mentioned that the main character reminded you of Rhysand and who's the other person?
Rowan.
Haven't read the book series yet. So
from Throne of Glass.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't read that series, but I thought it was different enough. But yes, Hunt was grumpy. He had so much going on. He had wings. He's gorgeous.
Got tattoos.
Yeah. And he's just so fine. Yeah. You know, finger snap fine. Yeah. So, sure.
Yeah.
Fine. Anyway.
So, plot. What do you... We already kind of touched on this, but plot... Well, so for me, the issue with the plot was there's 100 pages in the first part of this book that are entirely world building. Mm-hmm. And the actual story doesn't start until you are fully 100 pages into the book. Now, it is a juicy, thick book. You've got a lot of pages to get through. Yeah. But spending 100 pages just learning about the hierarchy of the world and then learning of these characters that you don't actually get to see for the rest of the book was a little bit much on the front end. And it does weave into what happens for the rest of the plot, but it was too much world building. And then that moment at the end where your characters start doing things that are like, no. I'm sorry, did you just forget who you were? Like, for the past 700 pages, you had this motivation. So why all of a sudden am I learning that you've been doing shady stuff behind the scenes?
Yeah. The plot for me... So something to note. My book, actually, I wonder if I can find it. I have sections that are missing from my book. So when I'm reading it, I'm like, oh, maybe this is why I am confused. Like, maybe I am missing page. I can't find it right away. It goes
from like 530 to 560.
Yeah,
like
I can't find
a whole chunk.
I can't find it right away. I won't spend forever looking. So when I was really confused at first, I'm like, oh, it's because my book is missing sections. They were just not sewn in. And so then I bought the audiobook, and no, I was just confused. I was just confused. Because I was trying it's so much world building that you're questioning, is this important? Is this important? Is this important? And some of it might be important for the series, but not all of it was important for this book.
Right.
And I felt like there was kind of a significant plot pacing problem. So it's not that I thought the plot was bad. For me, it was the pace of it. It felt really disjointed, where it would be slow, really, really fast. And the fast parts actually were my favorite because we had a clear goal and mission. And then it would get so slow again. And Anna read this book in like 2 seconds. And it took me like 2.5 weeks. And I was just really bothered by the development of it, I guess. Yeah. So I'd probably give it a 3 because I could see where if she stripped away a couple of pages, maybe expanded some of the fast parts, how it could have been a really good plot. There was a clear goal and mission.
I agree with a 3.
So disjointed.
Yeah. So, author's voice. We've already talked about how Sarah J Maas kind of has her telltale, her calling sign, if you will.
Yeah.
She talks about people's eyes being lined with silver when they're crying. It's in this book, man. You can tell that this was a book that was written by her. I still felt like I gave it a 3 for author's voice because even though it's distinctly her, being distinctly her isn't necessarily great writing.
Yeah.
And a lot of descriptions are repeated. I think that is what came down to like why it was a 3 for me was regardless of what was happening, if someone was dying and their body was being described, she was using the same exact phrases to describe. Pulpy. Yep, pulpy. Their bodies were pulpy.
And they were shredded to ribbons.
And shredded to ribbons.
Not in the sexy time way.
And then characters that are attractive, she uses the same generic terms to describe how attractive they are. And it becomes indistinct because I'm like, okay, well, how is this different than the other 500 attractive men that we've run into in this series?
Yeah, it's true.
It is indistinct. Her descriptions lose their meaning when she keeps using the same descriptions.
Yeah, I was really... When you said author's voice, I'm like, because Libby, if you're watching, she has destroyed it for me because she's like, but how are author's voice? How is that separate from the main narrator? But this actually wasn't a first-person perspective. But when we're talking about author's voice, it's the word choices and the tone a lot. And so I think that's what, whenever you hear that, we're talking about the prose, the descriptions. And for me, they were a little lackluster because of a lot of... Sorry, peoples, we agree today. But because of everything that Anna just said, no one felt necessarily the way that they looked, at least, the descriptions, even the town or the city. I don't really feel like I got a good vibe for what it looked like. It was hard for me to visualize some of the concepts that were going on, and I think it's because of the descriptions, not because it was a plot issue. It was a writing issue. But it wasn't bad, so it was fine, which is our 3.
It was fine.
It was fine.
Yeah. It didn't add to the story, but it didn't necessarily take away from it. I did get really tired of the word pulpy, though.
What's so funny is I didn't pick up on that, and I don't know if it's because I was listening to it, because my book, again, sections are missing everywhere, so I didn't hear it, but maybe my audiobook orator used a different inflection for each pulpy. I don't know.
All right, so next is Believability. I can't remember what I initially gave this, but I feel like it's a 3 for me because of that ending, or really what happens to initiate the ending was just so much of a 180 in character motivations that it was in the consequences of this decision that this character makes leads you into this end, like, chaos, right? And I just could not, I was like, I don't like this character anymore because they did something that was so against what we have seen them be for the last 600 pages. And it was so hard to buy that they would have done that, or that they could even be there for this decision to be made because of, like, other things that have happened to them. Like, it doesn't make sense that they would actually be physically there.
For me, I think I did give it I actually can't remember because I believed in the story. I believe in the goal. I believe most of the characters, but the character motivations and some of the ending really did just knock it down a notch. And for me, it's not even just the one character who you have in mind. It was a couple of characters. I'm like, but why though? But why?
Yeah, like you get your evil villain speech at the end and you're like, so you just did all of this because you were evil? Like, that was your motivation, was I'm a bad person, so I do bad things. And it's like, okay, great, that's very not in depth.
So...
Like, could you have a little bit more to you that I can hate? Like,
just something.
Just something.
Do you have, are you seeking revenge on someone?
Yeah.
Is there,
like, are you wanting to rule the world? Like, not even, it wasn't even that. It was just, I'm a bad person. Run away. Be
afraid. So, I would say probably a 3 for me. Maybe even a 3.5, but the character decisions were just so... It was fine. Back to the believability. It was fine. The general reading experience, for me, was bad. That's why I haven't read book 2 yet. It's because of the plot pacing. It wasn't the believability. It wasn't even really the characters, although some of them did things I didn't like. It was just so disjointed for me that it felt like info dump, but not enough. And I was struggling to go through it. And something Anna and I talked about was maybe this was the wrong book at the wrong time. Because it was the end of the year. I just wanted to meet my reading goal. I read 47 books and my goal was 50. So I think maybe I was just upset that it was taking me so long. But I don't want to give it a 2, but it might have been a 2. I just didn't like it.
Yeah. I actually gave it a 4 for reading experience because up until that ending, I was invested. And another thing that I've talked about with other readers is that this book relies heavily on Norse mythology terms.
Yeah.
That she has used and stolen, but they don't actually mean exactly what they mean in Norse mythology. So Vanir is that term she is using in this book means anyone who is magical, or has some kind of power or ability and is fae, shifter, angel, whatever, right? Mm-hmm. And then you've got humans who are human. But Vanir in Norse mythology are lesser gods, and the Aesir are the high up gods. And in this book, the Astari are the high up gods. So she's used words that are very similar to mean similar things, but they're different. And also, it's set in Midgard, which is in this world is a planet that's not Earth. But Midgard was meant to be Earth in Norse mythology. Anyway. So I actually have a random amount of Norse mythology because I play God of War. So my video game knowledge came in handy to at least help me figure out, okay, she probably means something like this.
You hear that, parents? Video games teach your children about the world.
Children Norse mythology by letting them play God of War and kill a lot of people. So,
yeah, I will say I was invested in the plot, which kind of gets to the should I read this? Once I finished reading the book and I looked at the story as a whole, I was like, oh, I was invested. I did want to know what happened. I was happy with the ending. But again, it was just the whole plot pacing, disjointedness, perhaps wrong place, wrong time. But then when I was like, hey, should I read book 2? Guys, drum roll. Anna, what'd you tell me?
I said, don't do it.
Not because of book 1, though.
No, not because of book 1. So this book won Best Book of the Year on Goodreads in 2022 for fantasy, right? It has 4.5 stars on Goodreads. I can't figure out why, because it has about 70 different plots. Mm-hmm. And switching POVs that switch in the middle of scenes, not the end of chapters. You're getting different POVs in every chapter, and none of them are distinct enough to know which character you're actually getting.
Yeah.
And 70 different things are happening, and there is no cohesive plot from beginning to end. There's something that you think, oh, this might be it, and yet it's not. That gets resolved real fast in the middle of the book, and you're like, okay, well, what is the last 400 pages here? And it's just a lot of stuff happening that doesn't connect.
I loved your Friends or The Office explanation of this book. I feel like you should share that with the peoples.
Yeah, it's so when you're watching kind of like a sitcom kind of TV show where each episode has the same characters and same setting, but not necessarily the plot that ties in over the season. So there might be recurring themes for a season, but you don't have to watch them in order to understand what is happening. Yeah. That is what is happening in this book for me, was a episode after episode after episode after episode of action. It is action-packed, but that just doesn't go anywhere. And you are being led down goose trails of oh, is this important? Nope, resolved. Okay, well, I guess they're not the bad guy for the book. Who's over here? Oh, resolved. They're dead. Okay, well, who are we even mad at? Who's the bad guy? We don't find out until the last 2 chapters. It was a mess of a plot.
Yeah, so Anna offered, she's being a martyr for me and is going to read book 3 to figure out if I should read this book. Yeah. Because something that, I don't think this is a spoiler because it's all over the internet, there's a lot of rumors that the Crescent City world and the ACOTAR world are going to overlap. Yeah. And so I'm like, okay, Anna, read book 3, tell me if this happens. So I don't know.
We'll find out.
But then that will be when I read it, because I didn't hate book 1 to be like, I'm never reading it, but because I was like, ugh, what a disjointed plot, and I was like, nah, girl, don't read it then. I'll let
if you had issues with this plot, you're gonna hate this book.
Yeah. So, overall, would you recommend Crescent City, or is it too soon to tell?
It's so hard because I feel like we are in a very small group of people who don't love this series.
Yeah,
I
sure.
don't think I've ever seen anyone critically, negatively review this series.
Yeah.
There are people who are like, I didn't love this, but majority rate it 5 stars.
Yeah.
I didn't enjoy it that much. The first book was fine. Second book, I was like, I'm miserable. I don't know where this is going. So I personally did not enjoy it. But there's so many people did that I don't know how to, I don't know what to say, because I'm like, I feel like we're kind of our own little group here. And most people are going to disagree with us and would recommend it.
Yeah. I mean, if it helps, I've had someone tell me I started reading it and it was too much and I stopped. Yeah. So I think that there's not enough people who are like, I read the whole thing and I don't like it.
Right.
But again, book 1, if it weren't for those character issues, believability would have been 4, so it probably would have rounded up to a 3, maybe even 4 for me.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I would I didn't enjoy it enough to recommend it to other people.
Right.
I wasn't even sad when you told me not to read book 2. I was like, okay, just let me know in book 3 if I should. Like, I don't want to miss out, you know? I still want to read it if I'm going to be missing a phenomena, but I don't want to put myself through it, I guess.
Yeah. It's too long of a book to not enjoy it.
Yeah.
To be like, wow, this is 800 pages and I enjoyed it. Maybe 50 of them were good.
Yeah, this is 805 pages.
Yeah. So now we are going to go into the spoiler time.
Dun dun dun!
So if you don't want to know specific plot points, stop here. Alrighty.
So you decided on the 2 things that just really...
that we have to discuss.
Because that explains our rating more.
I want to discuss something about this one too. But
yeah.
Anyway.
I told her she could ruin it. It's fine.
Okay. So, number 1 problem for me with this book was Hunt's decision to buy synth and use it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because what?
Well, because if you're not familiar with this book, I feel like some background, if people want the spoiler.
Well, I mean, I'm kind of assuming that you've already read the book. If you're
Go ahead.
So, home dude over here with his wings. Whoa. The book is angry at me for judging.
How dare you!
How dare you! Alright. He's like, I want to be free. Cool. Yeah, I understand that. I have this deal with Micah. He's gonna set me free if I help Bryce and we figure all of this out. Blah, blah, blah. Right? It's not gonna be immediate, but there's hope for me in the future.
Yeah.
Cool. And then all of a sudden, he's
out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere. Actually, I've been doing all of this shady behind your back. And I was planning to use the drugs that we know are highly dangerous and probably would have made me kill myself. Just to be free.
To be fair, he says that he didn't know it was going to kill him until he saw the video footage that Danica left him. So the synth, I'm still going to give the context because it's hard to talk about it. The synth is this it's basically a drug that you take and it amplifies all of the abilities that you have, and even if you don't have any magical abilities, it gives you some.
Makes you super strong.
Super strong. And it's so strong that in the end, it could actually end up killing you. And so Bryce, her friend Danica, leaves her this flash drive that basically is like, hey, we did trials, this kills people. But before all that happens, Hunt's like, don't look into the synth. That's the only indication that you know that he's up to something bad. Where he's like, maybe let's not look into it. But the whole time you're thinking it's because Micah, who's I guess a slave owner, because he is a slave to Micah, is like, hey, you're going to figure out what's going on by this date, or the deal is off, and I'm going to trade you into your arch nemesis, basically, who's going to torture you for years. So I just feel like that motivation was good enough. Yeah. And I think that's where I was so angry with author's voice, plot, believability, because it's not Hunt. He had a good motivation. He acted accordingly to those motivations, and the story was good. And then they're like, but wait, there's more. And it's like, but why?
Yeah, and he does this after having his wings cut off.
Yes.
And is, like, in so much pain that he can barely move. And yet, he managed to get his ass down to a boat, get on the boat, and have this whole showdown.
And it's like a major showdown.
Yeah. And you're like, dude, you were, like, literally unable to sit up on the couch. Like,
literally 2 seconds ago.
30 minutes ago.
There was even going to be a sexy time moment, and he couldn't do that.
Yeah.
But he can go on a boat with, like, waves, and it, like, has, like, weapons, and it's like, I'm buying drugs. Like, what? Like, you can... What?
Yeah, and then Bryce sees this happening, and is like, oh my gosh, he's not who I thought he was. And... yeah, she's like, we're done. It's over. I'm out. I'm so upset with you. Yeah, understandably so, yeah. Right? And then 24 hours later, she's like, I'm going to trade myself for him. And I'm like, girl, why? I was so upset with her for that. And
again, I feel like we could have accomplished this, because what if Micah did his villainous speech, yeah. Right? Because we're going to get to that. If he had done that sooner, Bryce could have still offered herself for him. Yeah. This was a plot point that was so unnecessary, and it incriminated 2 other people, which I'm trying to figure out. How did Hunt even contact them? When did he talk to Naomi or Justinian to plan this, like...
Naomi wasn't in on it.
No, not Naomi. It was Victoria.
Victoria, yeah.
Victoria and Justinian?
Yeah, Justin, but Justinian.
Yeah, Justinian. He has these 2 people who are helping him, and, like, he's with Bryce 24/7. I mean,
yeah, we're supposed to assume that they had secret phone calls that weren't being monitored.
Yeah, like,
but we don't know any of that has happened, so it's a little like, okay.
And, like, the one time he sees Victoria, he brings Bryce with.
Yeah.
And, like, I'm like, so when did this happen? Like, when did you plan this? You couldn't have sexy time, but you can get on this boat? Like, I was really bothered.
Yeah. No, it doesn't. It just doesn't make logical sense.
And it makes Hunt look like he doesn't have any common sense.
Right.
And he does.
Yes. Up until this point, he's, like, the smartest character in the book, besides Bryce.
Yeah, because Bryce is pretty cool.
Bryce is pretty smart. And that's, like, why they work, is because they're both intelligent, and he's like, oh, you're actually really smart, and I'm attracted to your brains, and... like,
yeah,
not just your body, but also hot body. Anyway.
It just was bothersome.
Yeah, that just kind of, I just was like, I
will say I didn't hate Hunt. You said that you disliked him after that. I didn't dislike him after that. I was just like, is this an editing? Like, I just thought maybe it was like, it bothered me more about the plot than about him. Because if I... know that there's, like, kind of, I know it sounds dumb. If I know there's a twist coming, or if I could be like, oh, I see how we got there. That's so cool. This was just, I'm sprinkling this in here.
Yeah. I think that it started me down this, like, I don't really like a character that just randomly does stuff that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And is not a good thing. Like, it was a bad decision that then... made all of this other bad things happen. The problem is I also read this book, which he doesn't really do anything bad in it, but he really just doesn't do anything, except for lust after Bryce, and then they spend 600 pages wanting to sleep with each other, but refusing to do it because I don't know, because we gotta have a reason to keep them apart, because if they have sex on page 1, then what is gonna keep the person reading? No, we gotta prolong this so people will keep reading the book. It felt like Sarah J Maas just was like, I can't let them have sex until I get to a certain percentage, because I need people to read most of the book.
But people read basically pornography. Like, this is, sorry, that sounds bad, but it's true.
Yeah, it just was like, why are we keeping this from happening? It doesn't seem realistic that they would not be doing that. And that is such a weird thing for me to say. But it was a problem I had with the book. that they spent so much time thinking about it, wanting to do it, and that is all those two characters that basically exist to have sex. In the second book, they really don't have any value until the very end, and Bryce does some weird stuff that I don't understand why we waited until the end for that. Anyway.
Was that your qualm with this book?
Yes.
So should we talk about Micah's?
Yes, the evil villain.
This is our third spoiler.
So you know in those movies that you get to the end and the evil villain steps out from behind his curtain and is like, "Here, let me give you a PowerPoint presentation of my plan. Right before I murder you, to explain in detail all the things that you may not have picked up on while you watch the first 45 minutes of this video." Yeah, he does that and more.
Yeah.
It is so detailed because she had to make him be detailed so you as the reader could actually understand what was happening.
Yeah, because
otherwise you're confused.
And Simon is having his evil villain speech right now. Sorry, if you hear my cat, he's meowing. But I think I wasn't mad that Micah was the evil person. So you find out Micah's the one who killed Danica. He's the one orchestrating all of the crazy stuff with Synth. Fine. I thought he was shady from the first page. I'm like, why is he offering Hunt this deal? Why is he being so nice? Anna, is he sketchy? And Anna's like, I will not confirm nor deny. Yeah. But the reason why, this is what made me, I was listening to the book, but I dropped my phone. So I couldn't put my book down. But I was like phone dropped. Because he says, I'm going to steal this horn to open up portals so people will bow.
Yeah, so he's opening portals to hell to let in demons to destroy the city so that everyone will bow to him. But listen, buddy, listen.
You also have a slave. That sounds terrible. But
you already have people who bow to you.
Yes.
You are the archangel. You're the governor. You're basically the governor of the city.
So what more do you want?
They already bow to you. And if you kill them, which is what is going to happen when you let in these demons, if you kill all of these people, guess who's left to bow to you? No one. The streets are empty, my dude. And what does he do? He still opens that portal.
Just because.
Just because. I'm evil. I want people to worship me.
And this is why the believability was so low, and also the characterization. Because I'm fine if it's a good villain. Mm-hmm. If you have a reason, but I'm like, but why are you doing this? I just wanted to know. And I was just like, what? So I think I would have it went from a 5 to a 4 with Hunt. And then it went from a 4 to a 3 with Micah. Because I'm like, you're doing this just cause? When people are just evil for the sake of being evil, I'm bothered. Do you have anything? Does someone hurt you?
Yeah, what? It's shallow.
Yeah, give me some depth. Why are you mean?
Yeah, and I will say a lot of her characters, her evil characters, especially ones that show up in book 2, are just evil because they want to be.
Yeah, there's not even I haven't read book 2, but there just wasn't a good reason.
We don't learn any backstory about them. We don't learn about some tortured past, some lost love, some child abuse, whatever that could have made them be like, I want revenge, and then revenge makes them bloodthirsty. No, they're just evil, and they like mutilating people. They like ripping them to shreds. Or ribbons, I'm sorry. Ribbons. And we never learn why they are like that, because it's not important. It just gives our characters a reason to be tortured.
Yeah, so if you don't like that, don't read it, maybe?
Not been kind to this series.
I think we've been okay.
Uh-huh.
But I will say, Anna did say that there are very clear signs that it will connect with ACOTAR. So I am excited. I'm excited but nervous. I will read this series, as I said before, if that connection proves to be a really relevant plot point, because I plan on reading ACOTAR Book 6 when it comes out. So I will. I didn't hate it enough to say I won't read it,
Yeah. I have a prediction for book 3 that comes out later this month. I have a feeling that we're gonna get a little bit of ACOTAR, like a little bit, like a little tiny taste, and then that's it. I think she's clickbaiting people into reading the third book.
Anna will let me know.
So
she reads faster than me.
We'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know what I want from it because I don't want her to ruin ACOTAR characters the way that she's kind of ruined the characters in this series for me already. So, yep. Okay.
So did you like Crescent City? Do you at least see where we're coming from with the hunt and Micah and evil for evil? Let us know. Yeah. What would you rate it? Use a rubric. Is it a 5?
No.
But leave us a comment below and
like and subscribe.
You're doing so great at that. Bye.
Bye.